Beloved South Africans, we continue on the ANC torture death squads that were formed during apartheid to suppress the freedom fighters, the real freedom fighters in South Africa, so that they can bring a counterfeit democracy. What the torture camps really were: 4 independent commissions between 1992 and 1993 confirmed the same facts. The ANC security departments in Bogotá operated detention facilities across Angola, Tanzania, Zambia, Uganda, and Mozambique. The West was Quadro, built in 1979, demolished in 1988. It had no electricity, no running water, and insufficient space. Detainees were tortured using methods including repeated facial blows until eardrums busted, suffocating with hallowed pawpaw skin pressed over the face, electric shock, forced degradation, and solitary confinement. Executions were carried out by firing squad. Chris Hani himself acknowledged the approximately 18 or 19 at a single camp. The victims were not apartheid agents. The ANC's own Stewart Commission found that none of the 1984 mutineers were infiltrators. Their grievances was that they had volunteered to fight apartheid and were instead deployed into Angola's civil war. They were misled by ANC leaders into being missionaries in a foreign land in Angola. All these military veterans in our communities who enjoy everything for free, they get paid for nothing because there was never war in South Africa. I don't know why they call them military veterans, because they were not fighting the battles of the South African people. They were fighting ANC battles in Angola, in the foreign lands. Today they are called heroes for betraying the people of South Africa and killing genuine people who volunteered themselves, who thought that they were fighting against the apartheid government. They are betrayers, just like their ANC leaders. Those who died in those countries were killed for asking questions, for raising questions, raising concerns about conference, election, and investigation into the security department. They received prison, torture, and death. The imperialist UN, who looked away, remained on the US State Department, or the imperialist UN looked away at all these things because they are the orchestrators, the main owners of South Africa. And the ANC remained on the US State Department's terrorist list until 2008. Nelson Mandela himself could not enter the United States without a special visa until that year. Yet, across 4 presidencies and both parties, American diplomats on the ground engaged the ANC leadership as the legitimate future government, while Washington maintained the formal designation. The Peace Corps placed operatives in East and Southern African during the 1960s. They are adjacent to ANC exile networks. The State Department's ground-level diplomats built parallel relationship with ANC leaders throughout the 1980s, even as official policy under Reagan's constructive engagement prioritized dialogue with Pretoria. Chester Kruger, Reagan's Assistant Secretary for African Affairs, designed the policy. Edward Perkins, Reagan's first black ambassador to South Africa from 1986 to 1989, managed the relationship during the final camp years. But the decisive institutional contribution came from a specific ecosystem when Bill Clinton appointed Delano Lewis as ambassador to South Africa in 1999. He was not selecting a career diplomat. Lewis was the former president and CEO of National Public Radio since 1993, from 1993 to 1998. The first black person in the role before NPR. He ran Peace Corps operations in Nigeria and Uganda after NPR. He assessed Thabo Mbeki's psychology for the State Department, writing the now leaked cable describing the ANC's government as still handicapped by the experience of the struggle and a leadership where enemies were everywhere. Lewis shaped NPR's editorial culture during the exact years when post-apartheid South Africa was being framed for American audiences. He then became the ambassador who framed the ANC government for Washington. Media narrative and diplomatic assessment merged in one career, and both served the same function. Present the ANC as the democratic inheritor of moral struggle, with no reference to the camps, the tortures, or the promotions. The anti-apartheid movement was used as a shield for terrorism and treason by ANC. The international solidarity infrastructure played a specific role. Paul Trewella, the exiled journalist who first published survivor testimony from Quatro in 1990, identified the anti-apartheid movement, AAM, as having operated open and covert censorship of ANC torture camp abuses. His journal, Searchlight South Africa, provided the primary source material that Amnesty International later used for own investigation. The liberal and left press in Britain and South Africa ignored that material. The AAM's function was not necessarily deliberate at every level. Thousands of members were acting in good faith against a genuine monstrous system, but the structural effect was absolute. The moral authority of anti-apartheid cause made the ANC internal crime invisible. Anyone who raised Quatro was immediately positioned as an apartheid apologist. The space for honest dialogue from within the solidarity movement was zero. After 1994, the AMM became ACTSA, Action for South Africa. Peter Hain, who led the anti-apartheid campaigns in Britain for the 1960s, remained its honorary vice president. The organization's stated mission is to combat the legacies of colonialism, racism, and apartheid. The legacy of betrayal, which is Quatro, is not mentioned. The architecture of selective memory and distortion of history continues under a new letterhead. Stay tuned for part 3. Thank you.